Okay, this is Chapter 3, Lesson 3.3. You will need your Chapter 3 notes, a calculator, and a writing utensil. So, expenditures. What are expenditures? They're items you spend money on. So, anytime you buy something, it's an expenditure. So, if you pay a bill, it's expenditure, okay? So, paying bills or buying items, those are all expenditures. So an expense summary. Once you have completed a budget sheet outlining your past expenditures, you can use a plan for future spending. You may want to prepare a monthly expense summary. This report compares the amounts you have spent to the amounts you have budgeted. When you draft a budget, you should include an emergency fund. Emergency funds are important. This is extra money set aside to be used for unpredictable expenses, such as medical bills or vehicle repairs, or maybe you have to travel somewhere. So let's look at some examples. Frank and Minnie Zorn have always kept accurate records of their expenditures. At the end of the month, they prepared an expense summary. They planned to spend $340 on groceries, but they actually spent $361. How much more or less did they spend on groceries than they had budgeted? So this example is in your notes. So they spent this, okay, they subtract this, they have this. So they were more than the amount they budgeted, okay? So let's complete two other problems. So we're going to say if they're more or less than the amount spent. So Zoe and Douglas Hamilton budgeted $167.80 and spent $158.90. So I'd take $167.80 and I subtract $158.90. And if I do that, I'd get $8.90. So because this is more, they budgeted more, they spent $8.90 less, okay, than they had budgeted. This is what they budgeted, this is what they spent, $8.90 less. Millie Bradley budgeted $647.50 but spent $671.92. So I take $671.92, I'd subtract $647.50, and I would get $24.42. So, and that is actually more because they budgeted this, they spent that. So they went over, okay? So that's another way you can say it, is they went over the amount, and this is under the amount, okay? So in your notes, so you're going to be given problems where you're going to be the amount budgeted and how amount spent. You need to tell me the difference, if they're over, under, or less than, more. So I don't have this part in your notes, but I do have, if the variance is positive, you are under budget. If the variance is negative, you're over budget. So you just put the numbers in. You take the number budget, I'm going to put this up here. The number they budgeted, subtract the actual amount. So if you do that in your calculator, you get the variance, it's called. That's another word for difference, is variance. If that's positive, you're under budget. If it's negative, you are over. Here's another way to think of it. If the numbers are the same, then you are even or equal, or zero, right? Because you don't have anything over or under. If they spent, the number is larger than the amount they spent, they went over budget, they spent more. If the number is smaller than what they spent, you spend less. So for the answers, you have to give me how much, and if they went under, over, or more or less, whatever words you want to use that make sense to you. This part is not in your notes, but if you would like to write that down, you can add that to your notes so you have that. You can go on to the practice and then to the mastery check.